is to have high standards for them. And I'm probably going to answer one of the other questions in the mix of this as well, kind of the negative way. I feel like oftentimes people, I use the word scared, and I don't know that that's the right word, but oftentimes I think teachers who aren't comfortable working with students who have disabilities, they let them off the hook. They don't hold them accountable to meet the highest standard they can. They don't want to upset them. They don't want to not be doing the right thing. So because of that, they default to a lower standard. So I think learn your students, know what they can do, know what their strengths are, and work to those strengths.
I have a son that has a disability, and so my biggest thing with that is I've always expected more out of him, just so that he would succeed and grow as a person in his own way. So setting expectations for him and helping him to achieve those expectations. Never setting limits for him. Just because we didn't know what pathway he would take. So in my classroom, I really have a passion for my kids that have disabilities. Setting goals with them, working with them on one-on-one, teaching them in different ways so that I can meet their needs. If it is through doing different activities, or if it is teaching them a different way so that they understand, or if it's just giving them different ways, multiple ways to practice it. So I think the biggest thing is that you just don't know what kids with disabilities, what their future holds for them. So holding them to a high expectation as a teacher is very important.
Sometimes as teachers we don't react like we should react to students, so I probably at some point have not always responded like I should. But I think, again, my biggest thing when it comes to students with disabilities that I see is teachers that don't learn their plans, if they have behavior plans, that don't get to know the student, to know triggers, things that could be their trigger points, and so because of that, maybe the student will react. Oftentimes, depending on the level of the disability, the way they're able to tell us they're upset can look different. So sometimes maybe it comes out as anger, maybe sometimes it's physical aggressions to themselves or to others, maybe destruction of property. That can look, how they respond can look really different. And sometimes it's as simple as they shut down. So if it's in an academic setting, when maybe a teacher responds negatively to them, I think you see a shutdown where kids will quit or give up on the task.
These kids come here to learn, but they also come here to be loved on. Like they need a place to feel safe. They need a place that they can connect with someone. And I think that like the biggest piece that a kid can take away is the relationship. That they know that they have somebody that they can trust and that believes in them. They need somebody to be their champion. They need somebody in their corner. Think back upon your experiences. Like, do you remember the content of Algebra 2, or do you remember the fact that your Algebra 2 teacher really believed in you?
I really haven't seen any teachers that have been negative to students. I would just say sometimes I feel that kids with disabilities don't get their needs met all the time, that they're kind of put on the side of it all, and that teachers just kind of go through the motions with them and don't really meet the needs. If it's a learning need that they need, they don't really meet those needs for the students. They just kind of go through the system and push them through the system. So knowing what their strengths and their weaknesses are and building on those strengths so that they can achieve goals and be independent as they get older.
I think what I've done to help all kids with or without a disability is get to know them. I think relationships, the most important thing that I can do in my classroom. And when you add a disability in with that kid, I think that relationship becomes even more important. So I think the most effective thing I do with any kid and all kids that I teach is take time to build relationships, learn something about them, know what they like, know what their strengths are, learn their triggers, how they're going to respond to you. And you can't do that if you don't build relationships. So I think if I have to lump one thing that's most effective, I think most kids would say I get to know them and I build a relationship with them, and then I can teach to their strengths and try to help them in the areas that they're not as strong in.
Really engaging in them. But again, that comes down to making relationships and building a rapport with kids. You're not going to figure that out simply overnight. This is something that you figure out over time, and it's your responsibility to pay attention to them and really get to know them and care about them. And I think that it can easily be done. We just have to keep it at the forefront of our mind.
One of the most effective things that I have done with students is just to really get to know them, no matter if it is a kid with a disability or not a kid with disability. If their needs aren't met social or emotionally, then it's really hard for them to learn. So if they're having problems at home, or if it's just that they have anxiety or they're sad, or so meeting them on their emotional needs or an emotional level first will help them to become more successful in the classroom.